so as to remain blameless for anything but the destruction of the tea. You also learn in that same account of one of the rebel colonists pocketing some of that tea and quickly being seized.
The Senate has been in recess subject to the call of the chair. The AP is reporting that the White House and GOP leaders have reached a deal on the fiscal cliff. A vote on the measure would be the next step, followed by action by the U.S. House of Representatives when they return on Tuesday at noon Eastern. Live coverage now of the U.S. Senate.
The Senator from Iowa.
Mr. President, over the last few decades, the real middle-class families in America, and I say real middle class, I mean those that are making $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, $70,000 a year, not $400,000 a year. Those middle-class families have seen their jobs become more insecure, their wages stagnate. In fact, their income, adjusted for inflation, is less now than it was in the late 1990s. Their savings and pensions have shrunk or disappeared. The cost of education has soared. At the same time, the wealthiest Americans and large corporations grow ever richer and pay less and less in taxes. For example, just take dividends. Prior to 2003, dividends were always taxed as ordinary income. But now they're taxed at a less rate, as a capital gains rate. Income of hedge fund managers are taxed at a lower rate than middle-class families, the so-called carry interest rule. The share of our nation's wealth going to corporate profits has been rising, as the share going to wages and salaries is declining. This has led, bit by bit, tax code change by tax code change, pension cuts by pension cuts, job outsourcing by job outsourcing, to an economy that's out of balance, that threatens the very fabric of our society. That's because the gap between the rich and the real middle class grows ever wider. That's because our economy is driven from the middle out and not from the top down. Our economy is driven by middle-class families with good jobs and money in their pockets to spend. So our first goal must be to put Americans back to work and to get our economy moving, to rebuild the real middle class now. Now, the average American across our land tonight, today, they probably think that what we're about here is just that, to solve our country's most pressing problem, creating new jobs, laying the foundation for future economic growth and thus reducing our deficits in the long term. But instead, we are here tied in knots to avert a manufactured fiscal cliff, which could have been avoided 6 months ago by the House passing S-3412 to avert the tax hikes on 98% of Americans. Now, I have said repeatedly that I will evaluate any such fiscal cliff legislation on how these proposed policies affect working families and the real middle class. Again, the real middle class, those making $30,000, $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 a year. So I am disappointed to say that, in my opinion, this legislation that we're about to vote on falls short. First, it does not address the number one priority, creating good middle-class jobs now. Unemployment remains way too high. This bill should include direct assistance on job creation measures. For example, our infrastructure, education, job retraining. How many jobs we see out there that are going wanting because people aren't trained for those jobs, and yet we don't have enough money to put into job retraining. This legislation before us neglects our most pressing concern at the present time, and that is the lack of jobs and the lack of qualified people to fill those jobs. Secondly, This proposal does not generate the revenue necessary for the country to meet its needs for everything from education to job training, infrastructure, research and development. The idea that people earning $300,000 to $400,000 a year could not pay the taxes they paid in the 1990s when the economy was booming is just plain absurd. But that's what we're being told, that people who make $300,000 or $400,000 a year simply cannot pay the same taxes that they would have been paying in the Clinton years. Furthermore, these wealthiest Americans made a lot of money in the last decade. So, what do? Now we're raising the estate tax exemption to $5 million. It was $1 million under the Clinton tax years, so now the few that are really wealthy made a lot of money. They've accumulated this wealth, and now we raise the estate tax so they can now pass it on without any of that gain ever being taxed, because the heirs now get it with what they call a stepped-up basis. So none of that is taxed. And so what we see then are the few who are wealthy getting more and more wealthy. So wealth becomes even more concentrated under this system. Now, some will say, what's the problem here? You wanted to protect middle class. They are. In this bill, how can you object if some higher income individuals are protected as well? Well, I point out these are not unrelated matters. With government investments and government spending dropping, being squeezed every year by my conservative friends on the other side of the aisle, with deficits remaining high, every dollar of sacrifice that the wealthy forego is sacrifice that we will later be asking of real middle-class, modest-income Americans. Every dollar that the top 2% of taxpayers do not pay under this deal, we will eventually ask folks of modest means to forego in Social Security or Medicare or Medicaid or Head Start benefits or other items that benefit the real middle class. I believe it is gravely short-sighted to look at these issues in isolation from each other, especially since the Republicans have made crystal clear they intend to seek mandatory spending cuts just 2 months from now, using the debt limit as leverage. So number 3, why in this deal do we make the tax benefits for the rich permanent while the progressive tax benefits we put in place in 2009 to help people of modest means, why are those temporary? For example, the estate taxes that benefit the wealthiest are made permanent. The earned income tax credit that affects the lower income, that's temporary. The income tax rates that are set now are going to be made permanent to benefit higher income individuals, but the child tax credit is made temporary. The AMT fix is made permanent, but the American Opportunity Tax Credit for modest families to be able to afford to send their kids to college, that's made temporary. In this deal that we're about to vote on, logic is turned on its head. We provide permanent benefits to those who need it the least, yet this deal sunsets the modest assistance to middle-class families. And again, I repeat, middle class, real middle class, not $400,000 a year middle class. I mean the real middle class. I think it is quite telling that earlier this evening, last evening, Grover Norquist said he is for this bill, but our former Secretary of Labor, Bob Reich, is opposed. So maybe now I guess we are all believers in trickle-down economics. Not I. I guess we now redefine the middle class as those making $400,000 a year, when in fact that represents the top 1% of income earners in America, not the middle class. So I guess that we now accept as normal practice in reaching bipartisan deals that the most vulnerable in our country, like those who are out of work and who depend on unemployment benefits, can be held hostage as a bargaining chip for more tax breaks for the richest among us. Now, I'm not saying that everything in this deal is bad. There are some good parts of this. But I repeat, I am concerned about this constant drift, bit by bit, deal by deal, toward more deficits, less job creation, more unfairness, less economic justice, a society where the gap grows wider between the few who have much and the many who have too little. So, Mr. President, for these reasons, I must in conscience vote no on this bill.
Majority Leader.
I ask unanimous consent that the Senate now proceed to the consideration of H.R. 8, that the substitute amendment, the text which is at the desk, be agreed to. There be 10 minutes of debate equally divided between the two leaders prior to a vote on passage of the bill as amended. That there be no other amendments in order prior to the vote. That there be no points of order in order to the substitute amendment, or the bill. Finally, the vote on passage be subject to a 60-vote affirmative vote threshold.
Hearing no objection, without objection, so ordered.
Mr. President.
Senator from Nevada.
Very quickly, we've worked really hard this week. We had to be here. We senators, and we're happy to be here. But there are 4 individuals who didn't have to work this week, but they volunteered to do so. They are the 4 pages who kept this place operating with helping the floor staff and us. They could be home with their families and friends enjoying the holiday. Instead, they're here with us. We have 18-year-old Jared Nakura of Arlington. He gave up his winter break to be here. 22-year-old Priscilla Pelly of Washington, D.C. She's a staff assistant in my office. She has devoted her time here. 22-year-old Erin Shields of Tacoma, Maryland. She is an intern in my office. And 16-year-old Gwendolyn Liu of Kanoe, Hawaii, the only remaining current page, who skipped her winter vacation to help here. So I want the record to reflect our deep appreciation for them and wish them the very best in their future endeavors. Mr. President, working through the night and throughout the day, we've reached an agreement with Senator McConnell to avert tax increases on middle-class Americans. I've said all along that our most important priority was to protect middle-class families. This legislation does that. Middle-class families will wake up today to the assurance that their taxes won't go up $2,200 each. They'll have the certainty to plan how they'll pay for groceries, rent, car payments, all during next year. The legislation also protects 2 million Americans who lost their jobs during the Great Recession from losing their unemployment insurance. I'm disappointed that we weren't able to make the grand bargain as we've tried to do for so long, but we tried. If we do nothing, the threat of a recession is very real, and passing this agreement does not mean negotiations halt. Far from it. We can all agree there's more work to be done. I thank everybody for their patience today, and they've had a lot of patience. I also want to thank my friend, the Republican leader, Senator McConnell, for his hard work to reach this bipartisan agreement. It's been difficult and been very hard. As we've said before, Senator McConnell and I, we out here do a lot of talking to each other. We kind of go over everybody's head, but he and I know when the talk's done out here, we work hard to try to help this country. So he's my friend, and I appreciate this very, very much, the work that he's done on this. For example, this bill cuts $4 billion fiscal year 13 and $8 billion fiscal year 14. These are real cuts. They're in this bill. I hope the new year will bring a new willingness on the part of the House Republicans to join Democrats in the difficult but rewarding work of governing. The Speaker said all along he was waiting for the Senate to act. The Senate soon will act. Now I hope for America that the Speaker will allow the full House of Representatives to vote on this bipartisan legislation.
Mr. President.
The Republican Leader.
Mr. President, I want to thank my good friend, the Majority Leader, for his kind words, and thank everyone for their patience and their counsel throughout this process. I also want to thank the Vice President for recognizing the importance of preventing this tax hike on the American people and stepping up to play a crucial role in getting us there. It shouldn't have taken us this long to come to an agreement, and this shouldn't be the model for how we do things around here, but I appreciate the Vice President's willingness to get this done for the country. I know I can speak for my entire conference when I say we don't think taxes should be going up on anyone, but we all knew that if we did nothing, they'd be going up on everyone today. We weren't going to let that happen. Each of us could spend the rest of the week discussing what a perfect solution would have looked like, but the end result would have been the largest tax increase in American history. The President wanted tax increases, but thanks to this imperfect agreement, 99% of my constituents will not be hit by those hikes. So it took an imperfect solution to prevent our constituents from a very real financial pain. But in my view, it was worth the effort. As I said, this shouldn't be the model for how we do things around here, but I think we can say we've done some good for the country. We've done some good for the country. We've taken care of the revenue side of this debate. And now it's time to get serious about reducing Washington's out-of-control spending. That's a debate the American people want. It's the debate we'll have next, and it's a debate Republicans are ready for. Mr. President, I yield the floor.
Mr. President, the
Majority Leader.
vote will start immediately, and people should get here as quickly as they can.
Clerk will report the measure.
Calendar number 502, H.R. 8, an act to extend certain tax relief provisions enacted in 2001 and 2003, and so forth, and for other purposes.
Under the previous order, Amendment 3448 is agreed to.
Under the previous order, Amendment 3348 is agreed to.
Clerk will read the bill for the third time.
Clerk will read the bill for the third time.
Calendar number 502, H.R. 8, an act to extend certain tax relief provisions enacted in 2001 and 2003, and for other purposes.
Is there a sufficient second? There appears to be. There is a sufficient second. Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Akaka. Mr. Alexander. Ms. Ayotte. Mr. Barrasso. Mr. Baucus. Mr. Beckich. Mr. Bennett. Mr. Bingaman. I got you. Mr. Blumenthal. Mr. Blunt. Mr. Bozeman. Mrs. Boxer. Mr. Brown in Massachusetts. Mr. Brown of Ohio. Mr. Burr. Ms. Cantwell. Mr. Cardin. Mr. Carper. Mr. Casey. Mr. Chandler. Mr. Coates. Mr. Coburn. Mr. Cochran. Ms. Collins. Mr. Conrad. Mr. Coons. Mr. Corker. Mr. Cornyn. Mr. Crapo. Mr. Dement. Mr. Durbin. Mr. Enzi, Mrs. Feinstein, Mr. Franken, Mrs. Gillibrand, Mr. Graham, Mr. Grassley, Mrs. Hagan, Mr. Harkin, Mr. Hatch, Mr. Heller, Mr. Hoven, Mrs. Hutchison, Mr. Inhofe, Mr. Isaacson, Mr. Johans, Mr. Johnson of Wisconsin, Mr. Johnson of South Dakota, Mr. Carey, Mr. Kirk, Ms. Klobuchar, Mr. Cole, Mr. Kyle, Ms. Landrieu, Mr. Lautenberg, Mr. Leahy, Mr. Lee, Mr. Levin, Mr. Lieberman, Mr. Lugar, Mr. Manchin, Mr. McCain, Mrs. McCaskill, Mr. McConnell, Mr. Menendez, Mr. Merkley, Ms. Mikulski, Mr. Moran, Ms. Murkowski, Mrs. Murray, Mr. Nelson of Nebraska, Mr. Nelson of Florida, Mr. Paul, Mr. Portman, Mr. Pryor, Mr. Reed of Rhode Island, Mr. Reed of Nevada, Mr. Risch, Mr. Roberts, Mr. Rockefeller, Mr. Rubio, Mr. Sanders, Mr. Schatz, Mr. Schumer, Mr. Sessions, Mrs. Shaheen, Mr. Shelby, Ms. Snow, Ms. Stabenow, Mr. Tester, Mr. Thune, Mr. Toomey, no, Mr. Udall of Colorado. Mr. Udall of New Mexico. Mr. Vitter. Mr. Warner.
Sounds good.
Mr. Webb.
Sounds even better.
Mr. Whitehouse. Mr. Wicker. Mr. Wyden. Senators voting in the affirmative.
We have order. Clerk will proceed.
Senators voting in the affirmative. Alexander, Beckidge, Bingaman, Boxer, Brown of Massachusetts, Brown of Ohio, Burr, Cantwell, Casey, Cochran, Collins, Conrad, Coons, Cornyn, Crapo, Durbin, Franken, Gillibrand, Graham, Hagan, Heller, Isaacson, Johans, Johnson of South Dakota, Klobuchar, Cole, Kyle, Leahy, Lieberman, Lugar, McCaskill, McConnell, Mikulski, Murkowski, Murray, Nelson of Florida, Reed of Rhode Island, Risch, Rockefeller, Sanders, Schatz, Schumer, Shaheen, Stabenow, Tester, Udall of New Mexico, Webb, Whitehouse, Wicker, and Wyden. Mr. Cardin. Mr. Cardin. Aye. Mr. Reed of Nevada. Aye. Mr. Levin. Mr. Levin, aye. Ms. Landrieu. Ms. Landrieu, aye. Ms. Blumenthal. Mr. Blumenthal, aye. Mr. Hatch, aye. Mr. Blunt, aye. Senators voting in the negative. Carper. Ms. Snow, aye. Senators voting in the negative. Carper, Harkin, and Lee. Mr. Manchin, aye. Mr. Menendez, aye. Mr. Shelby, no. Mr. Hoven, aye. Mr. Carey. Mr. Carey, aye. Ms. Ayotte, aye. Mr. Nelson of Nebraska, aye. Mr. Paul, no. Mr. Chambliss, aye. Mr. Inhofe, aye. Mr. Baucus, aye. Mr. Coates, aye. Mr. Toomey, aye. Mr. Bozeman, aye. Mr. Vitter, aye. Mr. Udall of Colorado, aye. Mr. Warner, aye. Mr. Portman? Mr. Portman? Aye.
You got it out of a doll.
Mr. Pryor? Aye. Mr. Grassley? No.
Went out the door. Or voted
Mr.
from the door.
Akaka? Aye.
That door.
Mrs. Hutchison? Aye. Mr. McCain? Aye.
Huge turnaround today on that.
Mr. Roberts? Aye. Mr. Enzi? Aye.
Yeah, very.
Mr. Barrasso? Aye. Mr. Thune? Aye. Mr. Johnson of Wisconsin? Aye. Mr. Merkley? Aye. Mr. Bennett? No. Mr. Rubio? No. Mrs. Feinstein? Mrs. Feinstein? Aye. Mr. Moran? Aye.
Holding it up.
Mr. Coburn? Aye. Mr. Sessions? Aye. Mr. Corker? Aye. Yes, sir.
Are there any senators wishing to vote or to change their vote? If not, the vote, the yeas are 89, the nays are 8. 60-vote threshold having been achieved, the bill as amended is passed.
Mr. President.
The Senate Majority Leader.
Mr. President, we don't expect votes today, any more votes today. We're going to wait and see what the House does on Sandy, and then I think whatever we do on Sandy will have to be done by unanimous consent anyway, so I wouldn't expect any votes until we come back here to reconvene on the 3rd.
So soon?
Which is, let's see, let me figure this out. It's day after tomorrow, I think. Note the absence of quorum.
Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Akaka?
Senator from Arkansas.
I ask unanimous consent that the quorum call be dispensed with.